Hello folks, welcome back to another technology review. Today I'm going to be reviewing something a lot different. This is something I've never done on the channel before. I'm going to be reviewing a video game console, or video game system. This is the Nintendo Entertainment System, also called the Family Computer System in Japan. Now, this particular model is the American version, or the NTSC version, and you can usually tell because on the American versions it doesn't say NES at the bottom, as opposed to some European versions. I point that out because I live in Europe, but I own an American system. I'll explain more about that later on. So I bought this system on eBay it was about a few years ago. I think I got it for €100, including controllers and stuff, and a power supply and connectors. It's a very nice looking system. Now, this is the toaster model. There's three different models as far as I know. There's the top loader, and then there's the actual Famicom itself. The idea is that obviously you load games into the front and then you press it down, sort of like a toaster. And you hear the way it clicks. You have a power button at the front here. You have a reset button if you want to reset the game. You have two controller outputs, but if you want to play 4-player, you can get an extension cord. There's very few games on the Nintendo that actually use 4-player, so it's kind of pointless, but that is an option there if you want. You have the audio and video connector, and you also have two outputs here at the back as well. You have let that focus, you have the AC adapter and you have the RF switch, and that's if you have some older TVs that only use the analog output, you can use that. And you have the channel select as well. There's some more specifications here at the bottom of the system as well, if you want to read that. Generally speaking, these systems go for about 60 euros. Mine's obviously they're all secondhand now because they're really old. But they're still fantastic systems. They're very popular to collect. They're pretty cool, and generally speaking, they're usually not broken. Sometimes when you buy them, you might get something called the blinking red light of death, which is where it just flashes on and off, and you can't get a game loaded. There's a nice fix for that. You just need to modify something on the board. Mine doesn't actually have that yet. It probably will eventually. It's something got to do with the anti-piracy. So if you do buy a system and you have that blinking red light issue, that is something you're going to need to fix by taking it apart. And it's very easy to take apart as well. It's just simple star head or plus screwdriver, whatever you call them. It's a very nice system. It's nice and small as well, and I have quite small hands, so it's not easy enough to compare, but it's a very small system. Now, when it comes to games, there's obviously probably the most famous games of all time on the system. Legend of Zelda, Super Mario, things like that. And I do like to play this system on my off time. One thing to note, by the way, is that a lot of games on this system are very expensive. Even the most common games will fetch you 30 euros. Some games, honestly, the system is cheaper than most of the games on the system itself. A lot of these games, especially in recent times, are seriously overpriced and aren't worth it. So if I were you and you want to play loads of different games, I would suggest instead of collecting individual cartridges, get yourself one of these. This is actually a double review, by the way. This is a separate product. This is not an official Nintendo product. This is the EverDrive N8. The idea is that you go into a computer and you put whatever video games you want. You put them on a micro USB, and then you can micro SD, and then attach to an SD card. And there is a micro SD. This is just an adapter here. And you put all the games that you want. Now, how you buy games? Alright, I don't condone this, but to be honest with you, I'll just be honest with you, just pirate them. Like, there's plenty of websites out there where you can just buy 100 games or 1,000 games, or you can even get ROM hacks as well, and you can play ROM hacks on this system if you download them and put them onto the EverDrive. There's a website dedicated to this. I would suggest you buy from the official Kriller. This is Crits, sorry, not Kriller. Crits is the actual manufacturer of these EverDrives. Buy from the official, don't get any third-party ones. I'll leave a link to the original website in the description, and you can go check them out. This is obviously the cheapest model. It's about €90. You can get more sophisticated models, but this one, if you're just looking to play games and have basic save states and cheat codes and things like that, just get this one. It's perfectly fine. It also comes in a nice box as well. One thing to note, by the way, is you need a micro SD card, but you need this adapter to actually get it to work. There is a gap on the top here. For some reason, I thought this was a micro SD card slot. It is not, okay? If you put an SD card in there, you will lose it. I know that's fairly obvious, but I just wanted to point that out. Concerning cartridges, by the way, a lot of people blow on these cartridges, if they don't load. Don't do that. You will damage the cartridges. You can also clean them with isopropyl alcohol and Q-tips. Just make sure you let them dry out. Sometimes these old systems, they don't, like mine I think is really like this, but it's very difficult to actually pull these in and out sometimes. You might be able to lubricate the connectors in the inside, but it's very difficult. But yeah, that's just another thing to note about these systems. Especially if you replace the 36-pin connector, which is what the cartridge connects into. Now, you're obviously going to need controllers. Now, these are the controllers. Mine is just a basic off-brand Nintendo controller. You can get official ones, but they're quite expensive. Luckily, though, even though the electronics on these wear out over time, they can easily be replaced, and they're super cheap to replace. That's another thing what's great about the NES, or Nintendo Entertainment System. There's plenty of aftermarket equipment out there, so, that's what's brilliant about them. A lot of people don't like these controllers, though. I don't mind them. I think they're really good, but a lot of people find them very uncomfortable. There is third-party controllers out there, and of course there's there's different manufacturers out there with varying quality. These controllers, granted, are not great. They wear out super quickly, and I might invest in actual official Nintendo controllers. If you're going for a controller, just buy official Nintendo controllers, and it will say on the back here, official Nintendo controller. Don't get third-party ones like I did. They're terrible. They wear out super bad. The D-pad is like super stiff, and the buttons are like not leveled properly. See how they're like one's like, yeah, that mine's wearing out, but they're supposed to be this high off the controller, and mine have like, they're like off level. It's super strange. Not to mention they wear out at the back as well. So let's put the system on, and I'll let you see what it looks like. Now, folks, before we discuss games and things like that, let me just tell you about why I own an American system, or an NTSC system, despite living in the PAL region. It has nothing to do with the EverDrive. You can use the EverDrive in PAL regions. I just got it for personal preference. The games run differently in PAL region, or in NTSC regions, and in PAL regions. 10 frames faster, to be more specific. And if you want to play Famicom games, you're going to have to get an NTSC system, because a lot of the times NTSC games won't run properly on a PAL console, and there's nothing you can do to really adjust that. If you're like me and you live in the UK, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to get, now you can see it's connected to the wall, don't mind my cable management, but you can you can see how there's the power supply. It connects to the wall and then connects to the console. if you're buying an NTSC or an American Nintendo, or even a Japanese Nintendo, which is a Famicom, but that's a completely different category, do not connect the NTSC power supply into the PAL outlet. You will break your console. If you want to use an American console in Europe, you need to get a European Nintendo power supply and plug it into the into the um, into the American system. Okay. Hopefully, I explained that properly. Just don't plug the American power supply into European outlet. Okay, because it will damage the system. It might even break it completely. I don't know if that's 100% true, but to be honest with you, I'm no expert in electricity and things like that, and you don't want to break your system. So now I'm demonstrating a game here. This is Super Mario: The Lost Levels, just to prove to you that this is an FDS ROM, and you can obviously start the game, and it will work, and it's pretty good. So that just gives you an idea, sorry, of what you can do. Now, this isn't a tutorial about how to use the EverDrive, but if you want to go back to the actual, if you just press reset, it just resets the game itself. If you want to go back to the menu, you have to turn off the console, turn it back on again. You also have access to cheat codes, you have ROM hacks as well. It's pretty cool. So that's all I really have to say. There is, of course, BIOS and different firmware updates that you can download on Crit's website as well. So again, I'll leave a link to all that in the description if you want to buy the product. This video is not sponsored, by the way. So folks, that's really it. Hopefully you enjoyed this review. It's a bit different. I don't normally review video game systems, but yeah. Hopefully you enjoyed this short little review, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care and goodbye.